Hey everyone, and welcome back to That Was History. This episode will be in the form of a fireside chat, and if this is the first one of these that you've actually seen, please note that they're a little different than our normal videos. Instead of seeing Jeremy and I on screen, you will only hear our voice accompanied with images and other media to represent our historical events for the week. We do this from time to time whenever our schedule doesn't allow us to hold a full recording session that we typically do. Our fireside chat idea actually comes from Franklin D. Roosevelt's fireside chats that he aired on the radio during the Great Depression. Anyways, we've got 7 historical events to tell you about, as usual, so let's begin. On May 18th of 1921, Ellis Island was placed under quarantine because of a case of typhus. To give you an indication of the severity of this disease, typhus was the disease that decimated many prisoners in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp during World War II. On Ellis Island, there were 1,700 immigrants who were quarantined while the island was fumigated and cleaned up. It would take workers several days to open the island to immigration once again. Obviously, something had to be done, but it's a shame that so much activity and work had to be halted because of this disease. Our next event will definitely give you something to talk about with your friends. Each year around the world, different countries, cities, and small communities hold concerts, fairs, and events to celebrate their culture and heritage. Some common activities where I'm from include pumpkin and watermelon contests, family recipe bake-offs, and livestock shows. They all represent the country lifestyle that many Southerners grow up on. However, none of these compare to the contests that are being held in Angels Camp, California. If you're looking for Prince Charming, you should hop on over to their annual Frog Jumping Jubilee. Each year, contestants compete to see who has the best pet frog with the longest jump. This all started back on May 19th of 1928. On this date, the first annual Jubilee was held with 51 frogs being entered, and there have been frogs jumping in California ever since. The current record holder belongs to the frog rightly named Rosie the Ribbitor with a jump of 21 feet and 5 3/4 inches. Third on our list of events this week deals with Operation Redwing. No, we're not talking about hockey with this one. In fact, it's probably as far away from the sport as humanly possible. When talking about World War II, and more specifically the Pacific Theater, it's hard not to discuss the devastation that America's atomic bombs inflicted on Japan. This event has shown that bombs of this magnitude and build should be handled with the utmost care and not used lightly. Obviously, preparation and testing had to go into these bombs before they were used. America didn't want to unleash something that would come back to haunt them and their allies, but where do you test something like this? America's answer was Bikini Atoll in the Pacific Ocean. They quickly relocated the 200 inhabitants of this region and designated the area as their nuclear playground. More than 20 nuclear weapon tests would be performed here between 1946 and 1958. Operation Redwing was a series of 17 nuclear test detonations from May until July of 1956. On May 20th of that year, the United States would perform a test named Cherokee, which was their first airborne drop of a hydrogen bomb. This particular bomb was of the Mark 15 design that would stay in service until 1965. At some point or another, you have probably heard a little something about the Salem witch trials. You know, that time period toward the end of the 1600s where people were tried and typically sentenced to death for being witches in Salem, Massachusetts. The punishments were terrifying and many innocent people were killed over superstitions and gossip. This definitely sounds like something from the past. We scoff at the ridiculousness of these trials, but sadly, these events still occur today. Did you know that on May 21st of 2009, 11 people were accused of being witches and were burned to death? This happened in a village in Kenya where a mob attacked 8 elderly women and 3 men, all of whom were over the age of 80. I understand that every culture is different and we all have our own set of religious or scientific beliefs, but killing the elderly because they are accused of being witches? I think the real crazy people are those convinced that murder is the best option. Enough about witches though, it's time to talk about something more adventurous. Anytime you watch a movie about treasure or sailing the 7 seas, the captain always has his trusty map to follow.
What are you doing? Captain gives orders on the ship.
The captain of the ship is giving orders.
My ship makes me captain.
They be my charts.
That makes you Sharp man.
Maps are a simple yet sophisticated thing that contain all of the information you will need to navigate safely through land or water. As with all things, maps didn't always exist the way that they do now. Today we can use an app or a GPS to provide us with much needed direction, but things weren't always so easy. In an effort to combine our knowledge of the world, the Atlas was created on May 22nd of 1570 by Abraham Ortelius. Since 1554, Ortelius had been in the business of buying and selling maps, but couldn't figure out a more convenient way of displaying the world map than Mercator's very large wall map. After many years of frustration, a trader named Hoffman came to Ortelius and said, basically in summary, "Can't you chop these bed sheets into 2-foot squares and publish the map of the world in a book?" Ortelius took this request and made it his vision, naming the first atlas the Theatre of the Round World. This was so successful that Sir Francis Drake even used his atlas. The use of the atlas spread quickly, and soon the whole world would embrace the book. World atlases have been made and continuously updated ever since. When I say the Mounties, what comes to mind? Hopefully it's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police that have become so popular over the years. They have gained a great deal of fame recently due to their continued use of the horse as a means of transportation. It was actually May 23rd of 1873 that this force was first assembled. They were originally called the Northwest Mounted Police and were in charge of the Northwest Territories that had been purchased from the Hudson Bay Company. The initial group consisted of 22 officers and 287 men who were commanded by Commissioner French. Lastly on our list for today is an iconic landmark that has made its way into many films over the years. Hailing from New York, it took 13 years to build and was the largest of its kind until 1903. Have a guess as to what I'm describing yet? If you're thinking of the Brooklyn Bridge, then you are absolutely correct. On May 24th of 1883, the bridge would officially open to traffic and would link Brooklyn and Manhattan together by crossing the East River. It is one of the oldest suspension bridges in the United States and the first ever steel wire suspension bridge. Well, that's your 7 historical events for this week. Thank you for joining me for this fireside chat, and if you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to check out our other videos as well. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share us with your friends and family on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, I'm Cliff Langston, and I'll see you next Friday.